Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is business performance planning. My name is Rich Black, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Microsoft Teams Town Hall. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name and your email address may be viewable by session organizers. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. If you do not consent to be part of the recorded session, please disconnect at this time. The recordings will be made available in the Tech Talks community Dynamics page in coming weeks. If you have questions for presenters or you need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. If you wish your name to not be visible to organizers or to other session participants, please post your questions anonymously. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout the session and in a live segment at the end of the presentation. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. And on to the presentation. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Romain Pham, Senior Product Manager, and myself, Rich Black, FastTrack Solutions Architect. Let's take a look at today's agenda. We're going to cover a quick overview and introduction to business performance planning. If you're new to it, we'll review the capabilities, and we'll focus on some of the new features that have recently been released. We'll then dive into some more of the capabilities, give you some insight and input into the roadmap, and finally, share some guidance and resources before addressing questions. With that said, let's begin an overview, and I'll hand it over to Romain.
Hi, everyone. Very excited today to talk to you about the updates of BPP. But first, before we get into that, I wanted to share with you as well what's BPP and what we're trying to address. So that's a slide I really like to show because that's what before automation, this is what planning often looks like. This is what I believe the reality of many organizations today. So basically, finance teams are spending the days buried in spreadsheet, collecting extract from different information systems like their ERP, CRM, HR, procurement, and just trying to reconcile the truth of what happened. And then you have each department that operates really in isolation. So HR, supply chain, project, they all using their own files back and forth or leveraging template that has been refined for them only. A version multiply, numbers drift, and what should be a single source of truth turns into a patchwork of disconnected Excel file. The result is really delay, rework, and endless clarification loops. Can you give me more detail about this? Are you sure this number is correct? The template doesn't work. How do I do that? Can I get that number? So this is exactly the kind of world business performance planning is building to replace. We want to bring in your data, your models, and collaboration into one connected platform. Next slide, please. So this is our perspective. So basically, BPP, what is it? Is a Microsoft integrated planning solution for Dynamics customer. So what we're doing is connecting finance and operation in a single planning experience built on tools that people already know, Excel and Power BI. Instead of disconnected spreadsheet and siloed planning systems, as we've seen earlier, you get one integrated platform on Dataverse that gives you transparency across the business, simplifies collaboration, and reduces the time between insights and execution. In short, better decision, faster, without leaving the Microsoft ecosystem. So, and here's the future of planning, how we envision it. So what we're building towards an agent-based planning capabilities. What we want this agent to do is analyze your historical data, detect statistical pattern, test multiple forecasting algorithm, and surface recommendation directly inside the planning visual and the planning space that you are monitoring your performance. Instead of building every scenario manually, planner will be able to ask, what happens if revenue grows by 5% in Q3? Or which cost driver impacting margin variance? And get structured, explainable output, not black box results. We do not want to add AI to planning. What we're trying to do is redesigning planning for an AI native world. And that's what we believe in the future of planning is integrated, not isolated. So instead of separate planning tools for finance, supply chain, and operation, we want to build a central planning analytics workspace on the Microsoft platform. BPP handles financial planning, demand planning, address supply chain forecasting, BPA provides ERP-wide analytics, and together they create a connected loop from transaction to insight to plan to execution. That's the direction, fewer silo, tighter integration, faster response. And I'm handing over to Rich for the overview of BPP's capability.
All right, let's take a look and check out some of the capabilities. In this video, we'll see some examples of BPP planning dashboards and an introduction to some of the latest features.
Planning has long relied on spreadsheets, but as businesses scale, their limits become clear with disconnected processes, fragile models, and instinct-driven decisions. Enterprise tools promise to solve this, yet often introduce rigidity, complexity, and slowed change. At Microsoft, we believe it's time for a new approach. With Business Performance Planning in Dynamics 365, we are making planning continuous, collaborative, and connected by bringing together Excel, Power Platform, Power BI, and the full Microsoft ecosystem, creating a unified experience. With Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform, BPP provides near real-time visibility into how plans, forecasts, and operations impact performance. This enables faster, more agile decisions across the business. Let's see what this looks like in action. In the BPP app, administrators can now build planning models in just a few clicks. By uploading an Excel file, BPP automatically recognizes dimensions and facts to shape the cubes. With our new model interface, users see their planning model take shape instantly through draft cubes, a fast, high-performance way for FP&A teams to experiment and refine designs before committing. From the model view, users can switch between draft and published cubes. Inspect cube or dimension properties, such as column types, security rules, and data previews. They manage all modeling tasks within a single, intuitive view. When satisfied, the model is published to Dataverse, becoming a living foundation for enterprise planning. From there, it can be enriched further by connecting Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations via virtual entities, or by pulling data from CRM, HR systems, and 1,400 plus other sources through no-code Power Platform data flows. With limitless extensibility through Microsoft Fabric, organizations can enrich planning, unify financial and operational data at scale, and extend BPP seamlessly into their broader data estate. Once the data model is published and the data flows in, the model can now be leveraged for planning and forecasting business process inside Microsoft Power BI. Let us see how. Planners can enter and adjust data directly in Power BI grid visuals. Use allocation methods to spread data top-down or bottom-up. This allocates the spread proportionately for the selected dimensions. Thereafter, update values by typing formulas or adjusting visual elements interactively with immediate write-back to Dataverse. These reports are available in Power BI and also embed in Teams and Outlook for real-time discussion. These are conversation starter templates for the financial planning officers. Finance users can build polished financial statements, income, balance sheet, cash flow, using Power BI reporting visuals. The deep dive ready reports for your what-if scenario analysis. Planning in Power BI is powerful, but how do you bring those budgets back into Dynamics 365 Finance? With our new write back to budget registry entry feature, Business Performance Planning now connects directly to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Here's how it works. Once the budgets are finalized and approved in Business Performance Planning, it can be exported right from the planning cube by configuring the parameters, dimensions mapping, and filter criterion. Once export is queued and exuded, all your budget data is brought from your plan to Dynamic 365 Finance and Operations. This is a seamless bridge between agile planning in BPP and governance in finance. Right back to BRE, bringing planning and ERP together the way it should be. What once required monthly or quarterly cycles is now possible in minutes. BPP provides transparent, simple, and fast planning, empowering organizations to stay ahead in a changing market. This is Business Performance Planning in Dynamics 365.
Okay, so that was a nicely polished overview video that showed a lot of the out-of-the-box capabilities, including many of those listed here. Two features, the data model builder and the write back to the budget register entry, we'll explore in more detail in a few minutes. But I want to underscore that those two new capabilities help your power users get up and running very quickly. And you also saw Power BI enabled collaboration, which is what we're going to explore a bit further now. In this brief demo, we're going to examine some of the operating expenses for Contoso Coffee. We'll start by looking at how current expenses behave, see what's influencing them, and update a budgeting scenario. We'll create a new forecast scenario afterwards. And at the conclusion, you'll see how the OpEx analysis, OpEx planning, and scenario creation come together to give you a sharper review of operating performance and set the stage for smarter planning decisions. Let's take a look at a business performance planning dashboard for OpEx planning in Power BI. The overview page consolidates some key operating expenses. Here we are for expense trends, some drivers, some variances, all streamlined into a single view here. And this enables teams to identify patterns and make informed decisions. In the upper corner there, the page can be filtered by different slicers, including the OpEx category, the currency. And we've got these KPI tiles that highlight portions of total OpEx. We can see the ratio of different operating expenses and comparisons of current year financials to prior year. A couple of the combination charts visualize the actuals by cost center and then by quarter. And we've got a table that allows users to drill into each OpEx category and review the individual accounts. Using the navigation button, we can expand that, and we can also use the planning button to navigate directly to the next page. Here on this planning page, we give the planning manager a clear view of operating expenses by category and cost type. If a significant variance appears in the first chart based on the customer's data, the planner can drill into the relevant cost center, review the underlying figures, and enter an adjustment. The resulting change flows throughout the entire dashboard, updating the variance between planned values and targets, along with all the visualizations across the page. And this is, again, one of the neat features that we have with business performance planning is the ability to not just present this information, but to make it interactive and editable. At the top of the page, we've got slicers here that are allowing us to select the scenario that we want to work in, and the remaining slicers mirror those on the overview tab. So we're going to filter this down to our budget scenario and the 2025 budgeting year. And I'll expand this to give us this matrix visual a little bit more screen real estate. I have the ability to use different inputs, different formulas, shortcuts, if you will, for the matrix visual here. And I can edit the values directly in the matrix. So I'm going to go ahead and change the value for my travel and entertainment expenses here. And simply by entering 60K, I can apply that, and that value is going to be allocated across that expense category. And you can see these numbers have been updated here in real time. I can go ahead and make another adjustment to my administrative expense. In this case, I'll use a shortcut to increase this value by 50%. Go ahead and apply that change, refresh the visual, and refresh my published Power BI reports there at any time to see the latest changes. And we can see that that value has been increased by 50%. And all of the related visuals have been updated, the KPIs and so forth. All right, so let's move on. And at the start of our planning cycle, we're going to create a fresh planning scenario. So for instance, if the organization is preparing for an OpEx plan for 2027, we want to create a new forecast scenario. So I'm going to navigate here to New Scenario, and we're going to set this up and pre-populate some data to launch our planning process. So here on my scenario creation dashboard, I'm going to use our table edit visual. So I can see what scenarios and values I currently have loaded for actuals and budget for 2023 through 2025. But I'm going to use my table edit tool to create a new scenario by adding a new row into my scenario dimension table. I'm going to save the entry once it's created. Let me grab the correct values here for source and target. And I'm updating values into cube in real time here. So I'm going to do a budget for 2027, 2026, using 2025 as my source, and the newly created target of 2026. So the copy tool allows me to pre-fill that scenario with all my baseline data based on a previous scenario. So after I select the appropriate cube, I can define those filter conditions by narrowing that down. And I could add that for specific entities or other dimensions beyond just scenario and date. What I can do now is I can go ahead and create another one with a forecast. So I'm going to create this new scenario. In addition to actuals and budget, I'm creating a forecast, and I'll create this scenario for copying data from my budget to my forecast for 2027. I'll add a row here. This is more criteria to specify for the copy. Whoops. Yep, 2026, sorry. And I'll go ahead and copy this in. Now I will refresh my visual, and now I can see that the forecast shows up immediately with a value there for 2026 that's been copied over from my budget. Now, before I can share this with my team and solicit input, I'm going to make some initial adjustments to this value. So I would like to start with a very basic assumption here and simply increase the values in my budget by, let's say, 10%. So I'll use that input shortcut of I 10%. Go ahead and refresh that visual. And now we can see that my budget for 2026 has been increased by 10%. And I can see that the value there is reflected as $21 million now. Here's a quick glimpse at some of those shortcut entries that I can use and that I've leveraged for the initial adjustment. And I'll go ahead and do so again on my forecast. Now that we've seen an example of a BPP-powered planning dashboard in action, and we've created that new scenario, let's take a moment to review how BPP fits into our application landscape. This slide illustrates at a high level the technical architecture of our business performance planning system and how the key elements and technical components interact in the Microsoft ecosystem to support your planning processes. Your end users, including the planning contributors, limited contributors, and power users, are going to work in Power BI, like we just saw, and Excel with collaboration links available in Teams and Outlook and even PowerPoint. And we can implement workflows in Power Automate. Admins will configure the BPP data model and assign security and configure data ingestion into Dataverse in the BPP application itself. The data storage is in Dataverse, and this gives us the flexibility to work with multiple different systems of record and sources of data and pull those together into from those individual silos into one space here in which we can perform multiple iterations of our data. All of those different scenarios that we want to create, all of that data, what if analysis, and that various iteration across our planning processes is going to happen there in those Dataverse tables where we can read, write, update until we reach consensus on a budget. And at that point, then we can optionally decide to push that budget back into our Dynamics 365 finance system of record using the tool that was highlighted, and we'll explore in a little bit more detail in a few moments to create budget register entries in D365. We also have the ability, we're working here, we'll show you some of the things that we're working on right now to provide some automation for the forecasting, as well as Copilot capabilities in generating insights and generating some of the scenarios for us. Another area that we're working on that we're excited to share is a connector for business performance analytics, which allows us to leverage the data model that they've already built and provides a faster way for the data to be ingested because it's already been ingested into business performance analytics. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the new features in a little bit more detail. And for that, I'm going to hand it back over to Romain.
Yes, thank you, Rich. So the latest feature we've released, the next-gen data model builder, the one you've seen in the overview. So we're gonna see a deep dive video about this new data model builder. So we have revamped the entire experience for building a planning model, so which we call Cube, to facilitate the creation of those in a more intuitive and organic way, where you can just start to upload an Excel file with all of your dimensions and fact table, and then be able to build your cube directly from there instead of having what we used to have, a very fragmented experience and things one by one and so on. We have introduced, and you'll see a new mode, which is called draft mode, to enable you to refine and enrich your planning model before publishing it with additional dimension that might not exist in your Excel file, for example, or want to have different source file and so on. So more than talking and describing that, let's head over to the video that deep dive into it and show you the different new features that we've introduced.
In this release, the Data Model Builder redefines how planning models come to life in BPP. Users can now upload one or several Excel files containing both facts and dimensions, and BPP automatically detects each dataset, letting you tag them as facts, dimensions, or drivers in a single step. Behind the scenes, BPP analyzes column patterns to suggest relationships and potential drivers, instantly generating a draft planning model. You can also start from scratch, building a cube using existing dimensions already defined in your environment. Thanks to the new data model view, you can see your planning model take shape in real time. Explore its structure, refine logic and drivers before publishing. Once finalized, publishing to Dataverse transforms your draft into a live planning model, ready for data flows, write-back, and enterprise integration. The result, what once took hours now happens in minutes, faster, more transparent, and far more intuitive.
All right. And then the second big feature we've released is the capability to write back directly in D365 F&O budget registry entry module all of your planning that you've built with BPP. So what that means is that no more massive Excel upload or using the Excel add-in that we have for our loading back entry into the BRE module. You can now directly configure, or with your cube, you can already directly connect to F&O. Select your legal entity, select the budget model you have, and then map all of the fields you have in your cube with the expected attribute and financial dimension that exists in your budget model that you've set up in finance. And then you will be able to as well filter the rows and the data you want to send back to BRE and directly from BPP application without having to do an extract and configure the Excel add-in as it used to be. So let's go into that directly with the next video.
Planning in Power BI is powerful, but how do you bring those budgets back into Dynamics 365 Finance? With our new Write Back to Budget Registry entry feature, business performance planning now connects directly to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Finalized budgets and forecasts can now be written back at the same level of detail defined in your budget model. Here's how it works. Once your budgets are finalized and approved in business performance planning, simply open your planning cube, go to the ribbon, and select Export to Budget Register Entries. Your guided workspace for creating budget register entries in D365 Finance opens in a pane. Name your export, then choose the legal entity where your budget will be recorded. BPP automatically retrieves the list of budget models available in Dynamics 365. Next, define your mappings. The mapping parameters display all the required fields from your budget model, financial dimensions such as main account or department, date, and amount. You can map each field to the corresponding column from your planning cube. Need to focus on a specific department, period, or scenario? Use the filter options to include only the lines you want. When everything looks right, click Export. BPP takes care of the rest, creating fully validated budget register entries directly in Dynamics 365 Finance. To review or reuse a previous export, select all BRE exports from the ribbon. Every export is saved and can be used as a quick start for future uploads. The result? A seamless bridge between Agile planning in BPP and governance in finance. Right back to BRE, bringing planning and ERP together the way it should be.
All right, and so that's the latest, biggest feature that we've released. So a new, overall, a new experience to build the cube planning model faster, and now the way for you to directly send back the records that you've planned in BPP directly back to BRE for enabling budget control and so on. So now I'm going to hand over to Rich to go through another demo.
All right, so up to this point, you've seen an example of an OpEx planning dashboard created in Power BI, in addition to getting a look at some of the new features that help us build that data model, as well as push it back into Dynamics 365. But let's look at some more of the planning process using a Power BI dashboard that's prepared using a data model built and secured in BPP and features custom visuals that are unique to BPP. The result that you've gotten a glimpse of is a collaborative, interactive planning experience that brings the data together and makes it accessible to users in a Power BI interface. I'm going to show you briefly a couple more dashboard examples for a glimpse at a more extensive planning experience. So this is another example of an OpEx planning dashboard in which I can examine specific cost centers, and I can explore the operational expense forecast, and I can expand the investment category here and monitor the current trends of forecast to actual spend. We can also do some CapEx planning on the investments page here, where I can review the capital expense plan, and I can make some changes, maybe if we need to reflect a need to, for example, increase some production capacity. I have a table edit visual that is loading right now. This again is a visual that's unique to BPP. You saw a glimpse of it earlier when we were creating new dimension values. And here we're going to leverage it to create a new dimension value in the form of a new machine, or maybe other planned assets that we might want to add. I can add those planned assets directly into my planning model right here by clicking the plus sign. And I could add machinery and equipment. And I can work with the various different values and dimension values here. Let's move on now. Let's take a look at just an example of working with some pricing and cost of goods sold, and review some what if analysis on potential scenarios that could impact revenue and gross profit. Here we have a couple of different matrix visuals that are loading, and I can look and explore revenue for Europe and cost of goods sold in both Europe and the United States. Next, let's just take a glimpse at what we've got configured here in terms of revenue planning. And this can help us make sure that the plans that we're working on will work given Contoso's cash flow. Now, each of these, we've looked at a quick glimpse at OpEx planning and an example of investment, pricing and costing, as well as revenue here. All of these are variations on that same planning activity that we saw in the initial OpEx demo, and they prominently feature our matrix visual, which allows us to edit data in our planning scenarios collaboratively and arrive at a shared consensus. But there's more. The reporting visual is where we can see the collective result of all of these different planning activities and kind of roll them up in the form of financial statements or comparisons between the different scenarios that we've developed. So here, for example, I can see the cumulative impact of those different planning exercises spanning OpEx, CapEx, revenue, workforce planning, and more. And I can see that in a simple P&L sheet that I've created that shows and compares variances between actuals, budgets, and a forecast. Next, let's take a look at a couple of the collaborative capabilities. I'm going to, in very quick succession, just show a few glimpses of some capabilities that weren't covered in the previous examples. First, a quick look back at one of our matrix visuals, and note that in any of these cells that we can add comments that help us clarify edits that we've made, and we can collaborate in teams with links to exact locations in our reports when we have questions or we want to solicit additional input. When we've collaborated and reached consensus, after we can then perhaps change the status of a plan. From here, we can, for example, change the status of this specific scenario, and we can use this as the entry point for a workflow. We can use Power Automate to kick off workflows when this plan is made available for input or submitted for approval, or, for example, maybe we want to approve it and lock it from further editing. Now, we're not going to speak a lot about, well, we're going to talk about roadmap more in a moment, but a quick note here is that we have the standard Copilot capability within Power BI that is enabled by our Fabric capacity. And here we can gain generative insights and the standard Power BI Copilot capability to interrogate our data and answer questions about it. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, and we're working on the next steps, which include providing the ability to have Copilot generate those new scenarios and apply those initial changes that you saw me do manually early on. And we can do all of that using Copilot and natural language query. That's what we're working towards. Next, we're going to look under the hood. And this is the last stop on the brief tour here, so to speak. But everything that we've seen so far, right, has been from the perspective maybe of an end user or a power user in the case of the data model builder and the write back to BRE. But of course, that's not the whole story, right? Our administrators and our contributors also have a role to play here, and we'll take a look at some of that. Remember that our end user experience is in Power BI, powerbi.com, and that's accessible everywhere. These reports have been designed and created in Power BI Desktop and then published to powerbi.com, where colleagues can see and access them. I'm not going to launch the full Power BI Desktop, but I am expanding the edit capability that's available in the published report that is on powerbi.com and looks similar to Power BI Desktop. And I'm going to explore my report design here. I can see the fields that comprise my report and have the capability to add or update various different measures. And of course, I can apply different filters and even calculations that I've made using Power Query. Now I'm going to jump over to an older report. This is an older report, but what I want to do is make a quick edit to it and just illustrate how quickly we can do some of that here in the published version of the report. I had a reporting visual and a comment visual on this screen, but I want to just make the reporting visual bigger so that I have more real estate to work with here. And I've made that change, and it's instantly accessible to users. And I've got more room to explore the results of some of our earlier budget planning. And note here, I just want to show the capabilities of this reporting visual and the ability to aggregate or disaggregate the budget information using these slicers for different financial dimensions. In this case, business unit or legal entity. I can apply those as desired, and I can drill up or down my account hierarchy as well, which has been defined with different account categories or P&L groups. I can expand all of those, drill down into the individual accounts, or drill up into the high-level categories. And I can consolidate all of that information and immediately see these details at any level of the organizational hierarchy that I desire, based on the dimension slicers that I've applied. So that's another quick glimpse into the reporting visual. Okay, next, let's consider our data model. So our Power BI desktop dashboards are built on a data model that's defined in our BPP application. So let's take a look at the BPP application itself. And as mentioned, it's built on Dataverse, and that gives us the ability to work with data from multiple different sources and to manipulate it through these multiple iterations, and then to publish our consensus plan or budget back to the ERP or other systems of record. BPP app uses a data model that can be sourced from Dataverse. Data can come from our ERP or other different data sources in various different combinations. In the app, I can define my cubes and the dimensions of which they're comprised, and I can define specific drivers to behave as amounts or values I can change, and I can build calculated columns into the cubes as well. So here in BPP, I can use PowerFX to create these formulas to work with some computed columns, and I can do that right in the cube structure itself, in addition to the flexibility of building those in the report using measures and working with calculated fields. I can also work with my dimension values themselves. Should I want to do some limited editing of the dimension values, I can do that right here in the BPP app. And I also have access to the full power of data flows as an embedded experience, which provides a low-code integration option that can be used not only by IT and admins, but also by power users, and really expands the potential and the capability with more connectors than I can count. All right, so that was a quick overview, not just of the planning capabilities, but also under the hood, and a quick look at some of the administrative features here. And next, let's look ahead and let's talk about the roadmap. Romain, what can you tell us that we have coming down the pike?
Yeah, so as you've seen, in general availability, so we have the next-gen data model builder and as well the write back to BRE module in D365 Finance. We did some cosmetic update towards our new matrix visual and table edit visual to more match Power BI and Microsoft, and make and in that space we actually as well improve some performance aspect on those. That's is the teaser of more visual update to make them more compelling and more Power BI like, and as well improving performance. So for next month, what we are set to do, so we're going to revamp our link table experience. So some of you may have experienced the current way to create a link table dimension. So basically be able to create a dimension directly from Dataverse existing tables. We're going to revamp that and especially help you deal better with virtual entity that are available within your Dataverse when you have configured them. So we're very excited to release this as part of the new feature in the data model builder. So having that better experience to handle those. As well, we're going to introduce in private preview the budget write back with smart account structure validation. So what that means is we will provide you a way if you wish to write back records back to BRE with your cube to configure a smart account structure validation. So basically what that does, it will add specific metadata column to your cube and to your planning model, and then you will be able to trigger a check, and this check will check with your account structure validation and all of the rules we have set up in finance, and then update those metadata for you to be able to consult directly in Power BI as your planning goes through. If any record is using deprecated account structure validation, or you used to have some account used in previous version of the budget and the user keep trying to use them, you'll be able to spot them as your planning process goes, and not only when you're trying to send back those records to finance. So that should smooth and be part of your ongoing planning process, instead of waiting for everybody to have finished and then to check, okay, what records are valid or not. As well, we're really excited about providing a new demo data set and Power BI report experience out of the box for our customer and partner to play with BPP and experience all of the feature before committing or even helping you discovering the product more. So we will provide that. There will be two aspects to that. So you'll be able to install a demo package onto your Dataverse environment, which is going to enable you to have cube and dimension directly produce of have with demo data, and then you'll be able to go to Power BI App Store and download our Power BI app to get report directly and data model directly aligned with those planning model. That will enable you to directly play and be able to perform different planning operation and simulate and play with the tool. And as part of that release, we will as well enhance the binding of our BPP visual. Basically today, every time you want to configure your visual, you have to provide an API URL to make sure the visual can fetch the data, or custom visual can fetch the data. We're gonna enhance those by setting up a dynamic parameter. So you will be able to set that dynamic parameter and bind it to all of your visuals. Like this, when you are, for example, for a partner that wants to have developed some reporting and data sets into their environment, when they want to send it to a customer, they will be able to quickly update those reports with the correct environment. The same way for a customer, when he wants to move from sandbox to test to production, it would just have to update these parameters, and then all of the reports will go and have the connected to the right environment. April. So we are set to streamline the finance integration and enable you to quickly get your data from finance via our BPA connector. So you'll be able to get the data that has been shaped by the BPA team, and then leverage those tables, dimension, and fact table to create your own planning model. So that should accelerate your way to connect with your finance data and be able to create your plan and then send those back with the previous feature we talked about, send those data back to BI. We're gonna as well release our Dimension Security Group experience update. So we're gonna revamp that experience. That experience has been, we got the feedback, has been proven to be complicated to configure and not very and have some performance issues. So we are set to revamp that experience and make it better and more easy to configure, and as well have a better visibility of what security is actually applied to your different cubes. In May, we will have a quick start OPEX planning template. So that's directly dependent on the integration with BPA connector. Basically, what you will get is we will propose you some pre-built cube based off BPA data, and we'll start with the OPEX cube. That's mainly the data mainly coming from finance, and then we'll be able to give you out-of-the-box report. The same way you will experience the out-of-the-box demo data set we're going to release next month. You will be able to go on the Power BI App Store, download OPEX reporting, and be able to connect that to your environment where you have deployed your OPEX cube that we have proposed to you. Along with that, we will add calculated column on dimension, so you'll be able to perform a calculated column or have some rules on the value that you can have in your dimensions. In June, we will provide a cube audit tool in the BPP app. So today, for all of the records, if enabled in Dataverse, you can leverage the Dataverse audit capabilities to see what has been done to your different records at a different table. But we are set to provide you a better experience that is focused solely on the BPP cubes and dimension, not having all of your audit record into your Dataverse, but having an experience really focused on this part, and enable you to better understand and know without having you to build out a auditing report and so on, but provide you a better visibility on those. We will work on give you the possibility to add driver on published cube. Today, this is not possible. Once you have published a cube, you are not able to add more drivers. So we want to enable that capabilities for you if you want to fill in more records and so on onto your and scale basically your planning model and evolve it. July, we are going to work on the Excel engines improvements, better rebound visibility, and optimizing as well the getting started with Excel, not having to rebuild all of your connection, get data, but basically helping you get started quickly with if you want to plan or actually perform some planning in Excel. September, we will provide you automated what-if scenario planning with copilots. So that's what we were talking about earlier. And then we have a vision video that That's and again, I want to be clear, that's a vision, that's what we imagine the experience could be, but again, we want to have your feedback on that. But basically, we want to provide you with an agent that's going to be able to be triggered directly via Copilot to perform adjustments and create new scenarios directly by prompting Copilot and asking Copilot to create those for you instead of you having to do it manually via the custom visuals. And in October 2026, we are set to simplify approval with workflow automation. So basically enabling you to simplify approval workflow, lock and lock the different planning and scenarios that you have going on to enable to do a stage and gate and your planning process and make sure that when someone's committing to something and being in review, they're not able to perform those further change. Today you can do it, but it requires a certain configuration. We want to simplify that and make it more automated. And now we're gonna have next slide is gonna be a vision video. So again, that's full disclosure. That's a vision video. That's where we're thinking the experience could become, but we really expect you to give us your feedback. Are we right? What do you like? What do you hate? Especially if you hate it, so tell us why, tell us what's wrong. If you get confused by some certain of the aspect, please do let us know. We're really counting on your feedback to improve the product and do actually a planning application that you want to use and not like you're forced to use.
Business leaders today face tighter planning cycles and higher pressure to respond to change. At Microsoft, we're transforming financial planning over the next period with business performance planning's agent-powered experiences. The journey starts with a single click. From the home screen, a new Quick Start Planning card lets you instantly spin up a baseline OPEX plan. From there, the BPP agent proposes a forward-looking forecast scenario based on your historical actuals. A report is previewed based on best fit AI models like ETS, AutoArima, or XGBoost. Your plan seamlessly connects to Power BI. With ready-made interactive reports, you can explore your data and now initiate planning workflows directly from your visuals. Need to make changes? Just open the Copilot panel. Create a new scenario with a 10% cut in contractor spend. It's done, scenario cloned, filters applied, values adjusted, all from natural language. Want more control? Zoom in on a specific department or account and ask Copilot to apply targeted changes. You can even add contextual comments, logged directly in your planning record. Click any cell in the matrix visual and ask Copilot, show me the change history and reviewer comments for this value. Everything is fully auditable because trust starts with transparency. Once your scenario is final, lock it from further updates. Then initiate a write back to Dynamics 365 Finance's budget registry entry with a single command: validated, compliant, tracked. Planning shouldn't be slow, disconnected, or reactive. With BPP's new AI and agent capabilities, we're reimagining how planning works. Fast to start, powerful to scale, and built for the decisions that matter. The future of planning is not just intelligent, it's agentic, coming to business performance planning.
All right. Thank you, Romain, for that overview. And, please do, as a reminder, please do share feedback or input here in the Q&A window on the vision that we've just shared there, as well as completing the survey link that's been posted in the Q&A link as well. Now, for our next item here, going to share some quick guidance to help you get started quickly. And among the best resources where you can find information and, of course, ask questions and receive answers from ourselves, including our engineering group, as well as other customers and partners, you can join our Viva Engage group. We'll post a link here in the Q&A for that Viva Engage group. And a quick note there that the Viva Engage groups have been updated. If you're relatively new to the Viva Engage groups or you're used to working in the old Yammer forum, you'll need to maybe explore the links that are provided here to make sure you have access to the Viva Engage forums where those Yammer groups have been migrated to. Another quick tip is to start with your existing data and leverage the data model builder to get started quickly. This allows you to work with an Excel spreadsheet that perhaps maybe you're already using in your planning process, and power users can go ahead and get started with that in the data model builder and get up and running almost immediately. Then you can focus efforts on building your dashboards in Power BI, and you can also combine your BPP dashboards with other reports. One of the things that you saw was we were talking about different visuals, right? Our matrix visuals and our table edit and copy visuals, 7 custom visuals included with BPP are Power BI visuals that you can leverage in your Power BI reports, and you can combine these reports with other reports so that you don't necessarily need to create an entire data warehouse within BPP. You can combine your BPP data models with your other reporting and analytical reports, and that allows you to, again, make the best use of BPP and get started by refining your data model first and only working with planning data in the BPP data model. As a reminder, business performance planning contributors do need the ops activity license, and power users and admins will require the finance premium license SKU. And that finance premium license does incorporate some additional entitlements. There are additional capacities that are available with the finance premium licenses. So there are additional advantages in addition to business performance planning. And again, for complex scenarios, refine your data model, work with your data model first before importing the data into BPP, and wherever feasible, right, work with data that's aggregated as much as possible. You don't necessarily want to bring in all of your dimensions and all of your individual values there. If you can aggregate those for planning purposes, you'll have a simpler, smoother process. Some additional resources here, and again, we'll paste the link to the Viva Engage forum, but the Viva Engage forum is the best place to ask questions as well as join our periodic office hours. And you can also find links here to the documentation and training content that has been published. We also have training content that's published to a SharePoint site that folks can gain access to. And finally, we have the feedback that we're requesting here today within the Q&A form and the survey, but we always have the Microsoft Ideas portal available where you can add product enhancements and ideas for our product group, and we use this in helping to prioritize enhancements and changes as we continue to develop our products. So we do have a couple of minutes here to address a couple of questions. So Romain, I'd like to grab a couple of the highlights here. There was a question regarding the budget write back, and perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about that. For example, does the posting or creating the budget register entries require that the period is open, or what other constraints might there be there? Oh, apologies, Romain.
Sorry. Sorry, I was on mute.
Yep. I was asking.
So, yeah, regarding the write back to BRE and the period and close. So, this is aligned with the current behavior of FNO. So again, if you believe that this is a defect or an issue, please do raise it, and we'll be happy to analyze it and see how we could remove that friction.
All right, and there's an additional question. We mentioned licensing, right? There is licensing required, and licensing does correspond to some of the product capabilities or activities in business performance planning. Can you give us a quick insight into the difference between contributors and power users?
Yeah, so what we meant by contributor are the people who most likely gonna want to read the data, so wants to access the insights and as well contribute to certain plan that has been set up by the admin or the power users. So what that means concretely is that, for example, a department that needs to contribute and feedback some of their expected spending for OPEX will be most likely a contributor. People who require to create new scenarios, update master data or dimensions data and so on will be considered as power user and will require a finance premium license. As long as security, building cubes, and loading data, those are all set to be finance premium users, so power user or admin.
All right. So I want to remind everybody, we've got time for one more question. Before we take that, I want to remind everybody that there is a short survey posted in the Q&A panel. Please do provide feedback on today's session, as well as the vision video that you saw there, and tell us what you'd like to see in the future for business performance planning, as well as in future Tech Talk events. So for our final question, I just want to provide some clarity on the availability of some of the things that we've seen today. Romain, can you clarify when some of the things that we've seen today will be available, which pieces are currently available?
So today, what's available is all of the things you've seen in the first part. So new data model builder, all of the write back to BRE, those have been released into the current version of BPP, so 1.14, as well as all of the custom visuals. The report you've seen, you can build it. We have shared in our SharePoint, public SharePoint, certain asset that you can use and leverage and get inspiration from. But all of those are using our visuals or out-of-the-box visual from Power BI. Regarding on the video that you've seen, the vision video, that is all of the capabilities that we are working towards, currently working towards. So yeah.
All right. Thank you, Romain. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of today's event. And as a reminder, the recording will be made available on the Dynamics Tech Talk community site and Microsoft Dynamics 365 community YouTube channel in coming weeks. I want to thank Romain. Thank you for presenting and for sharing all of this information, and thank our audience for attending the Tech Talk today. And I want to wish everyone a fantastic rest of the day ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, everyone, for all of your questions, and looking forward to your feedback on the forum.